Good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday yet again, and it's time once more for the shop update. Sit back, get cozy, get yourself a nice cool beverage or a hot beverage. It's your choice. And let's get into some cars here, shall we? Let's talk. Let's chit-chat once again. We're going to start this week on the Defender 90 project. Much has been done, and I do apologize for the shakiness of the camera here. I'm very sorry. I lost the selfie stick. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere. If you see it in the video, comment. Tell me where it's at. Say, hey, it was on that toolbox over there. I don't know where it went. I genuinely don't know. I'll probably find it while I'm shooting the video, right? That'll be my luck. Anyway, let's get to these cars. Defender 90. You can see it's got a winch, a bumper, a bull bar, everything there. It's even got a little hook. Look at that little hook dangling out there. We were waiting on one of the D shackles, which you can see right there. We were waiting on one of those D shackles to come in before we actually finalized the bumper install. It was kind of just temporarily in there for the time being. But today, we got it all buttoned up. The other light has also been installed as well. That was a trick. The harness for this actually kind of fell inside the fender, and you can't get inside the fender from the engine bay. You can't get to it from the wheel well without taking a bunch of stuff apart. So we had to use some magic and trickery to. I had Christian play a flute like a snake charmer, and the wire kind of it came out. See, we got all kinds of tricks here. So the winch bumper's on. I haven't run the wires for the winch just yet, mainly because they're too short to make it to the battery, which battery's underneath the driver's seat over here. I'm poking there and I'll show you. Battery, it's right down in there underneath the driver's butt. And the wires they supply, they're 7 feet long, but they're not quite long enough to get to the battery underneath the seat. So we got to figure out, do we lengthen the wire by buying more wire and lengthening it, making new longer ends? Or do we connect to a main power source that is also connected to the battery, like a fuse block, which has a direct line that goes to the battery? Or do we put in a terminal post or junction post somewhere, use the 7-foot wire, make it to a certain spot, put a post in, and then make another wire to make it to the battery? Options. They've all got pros and cons. Warren, who is the maker of the winch, wants you to hook it directly to your battery. Okay, and I think they want to do that a lot of the times for liability issues. I've certainly seen these things hooked up to power sources like, to the charging system on the truck. I've seen the ground wire connected to frames and stuff like that. They want both wires, which are hanging down there. You see them down there, the red and the black wire. They want both of those wires connected directly to your battery. Okay, they don't want a switch in there. They don't want anything in there. They want it direct to the battery. So we're going to try and do it that way. These cars are notorious for draining their batteries just by existing. And that's always one of those things that's always bothered me. Like having something that's always hooked up that can always operate. I get the reason why you want that on a winch. I get that, but it's always kind of one of those, like, I always thought like there should be some kind of a switch to disconnect the winch hookup. Like you can put a solenoid in to do that. You can actually put like a battery kill switch, like a turnbuckle kill switch in there. Race cars have those. You can do that. It all works. But we're not doing that on this. There's no need for all of that. So we're going to try and hook it directly up to this battery. We'll try and get it there. We'll figure it out. I'll show you what happens once we figure it out. Christian did some more work on the back end of this thing this week. He did more. Oh, the light. He did more work on the rear door, which you can't see. But he did more work on that. We also have some sound deadening that we need to put in, which I didn't know we needed to put in. Christian's usually the person who talks to the owner, so he knows what's happening more often than I do. I didn't look at the build sheet, so I didn't know what's happening. But apparently we're putting sound deadening in. So we'll be probably putting some up on the roof area, because that's just a thin piece of aluminum up there. We'll be putting some on the rear door. We're not going to be taking anything else apart to put sound deadening in because that's just ludicrous. But we will be putting in as much sound deadening as we can. That's how this is going to go. Anyway, let's move along. Okay, let's get to the next project that has been worked on this week, and it's the MGA. Aha! That's the next one that got worked on. We did more. Christian did more grinding and some more finish welding on this front section here. He seems to be pretty happy with it so far. I was pretty happy with it, that's for sure. So I think he's going to be moving on to some of the other. There's a lot of small stuff that needs to be taken care of on this, and I think that's what he's creeping around and kind of taking care of the little things that are left sheet metal wise, so that we can get this thing to the same place that this one is and get both of them kind of primed at the same time. We're kind of thinking that if we can logistically set this up to prime both of these cars, final prime the undersides of them, and get them prepped for block sanding at the same time. If we can basically run both of those cars through the body shop process at the same time, it's going to be a beneficial thing for us. So that's what we're working on with that one. He's moving that one along and trying to get it squared away, and that's good. Meantime, the two other sports car projects in here haven't really moved along too much since the last time I talked about them. Also, one that hasn't moved along is the Jaguar. It's still here. I don't know what's happening with it. I don't know. We'll find out one day, right? Anyway, on to the Defender 110 project. You can't see it because I'm too close to the door, but let's go back here. Let's go. It's that one. The Cummins swap. You can see I've moved the hook and crane assembly out of the way. She is sitting in there on her own. Still only tacked in place, but she is sitting in there on her own. Those tacks are actually really good because I welded them. Anyway, what I did this week on this thing was scary to most. There's no dashboard. I took the entire dashboard assembly out of this thing. All of it. What else did I take out? The entire main engine wiring harness is also gone. She's gone. There's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, I have to sort through the original wiring harness and figure out what I need and what I don't need and get rid of what I don't need. Just get it out of the loom. I don't want it hanging out in here. There's no need to have extra wires in this truck. It has a full stereo install on it, which means that there's about 8 million flipping wires still in the truck for stereo stuff. So we don't need to add to that. If we can thin the herd in that harness, then we will thin that herd. On top of that, we're also getting more wires back. So maybe we won't actually lose much bulk in the wiring system, but I don't want to increase it. I want to either maintain where it's at or slim it down. So we're gonna get rid of anything we don't need, and allow the other part, which is the main ECU, which is attached to the engine. It comes attached from Cummins. It's connected, ready to go to the engine. See the whole harness there. Standalone system. It doesn't need anything else. Just basically needs power hooked to it. Normally on these conversions, this ECU is left somewhere in the engine bay here. It's mounted up. In fact, Quick Draw makes an ECU mounting bracket to let you put it in the engine bay somewhere. Okay. Most of the builds that I've seen about these Defenders with this Cummins swap have the ECU still in the engine bay. I don't want to do that. I want to put the ECU right there in the center console. I want it right in between the driver and passenger's butts. I want it right there. Okay, that's where I want to have it, and I think that's going to work. I think we're going to be able to get it there and not interfere with anything else. It's really just a pet peeve. There isn't actually a huge benefit to moving the ECU inside the truck, other than I think it's going to look cleaner when we're done, and we're not going to have this big wiring loom hanging out in the world with an ECU. And mainly, I can't put the ECU anywhere where I'm not going to have extra loom, so it's going to look silly. So I want to get that loomed into the truck as opposed to out in the engine bay. The other reason why I took the dashboard out is, and I haven't taken the steering column out yet, but the other reason why I took the dashboard out is because I have to make a bell housing assembly or a firewall assembly for this. I cut out a lot of the original firewall to fit this engine in place. It honestly doesn't, it needs a lot of clearance, but it's not that drastic of a change from the factory. It really isn't. So I've got to rebuild where the tunnel attaches to, and I'm going to try to reuse original tunnel pieces like this one right here. This is part of the original tunnel assembly. I'm going to try and use this. This one has to be modified some to fit around the bell housing because it's mainly the bell housing section. And then I'm also, this one fits perfectly and won't have any problems. So I'm going to make everything match up to this. This goes over the shifter assemblies. This is the piece I cut out of the firewall. Okay, so I have to basically remake this to fit our new, bigger, beefier, better bell housing. And then I can try and use some of the original Land Rover bell housing pieces to make it look a little bit more factory. I'm not trying to fool people into thinking that this came from Land Rover this way, but I just like things that look nice and look like they belong there, not some half-assed job. So that's where we're at with that one. It's going pretty smoothly. However, we may not be doing huge amounts of work on this thing in the next coming months. We're still going to get some work done on it, but there's another problem that's crept up, okay? See, behind me here is this lovely Lagonda LG6, and you've seen it in the shots. I've talked about it a few times. Well, if you go back to one of the previous videos, which you should do, go back to those other videos. If you haven't watched them, go watch them, and like and subscribe to the channel so you can keep updated with all of this stuff. This car was entered in to tentatively be in the Colorado Grand, which is a big driving event, very exotic, very fancy cars, very expensive cars. Neat event. It's held in Colorado. It's a charity event. It seems really cool. So the owner was waiting to hear back from the organizers as to whether or not this car was eligible for entry or whether or not he could be invited to the event. And it turns out we got the phone call this week. The car's been accepted. The owner's been accepted. That's good that both of them have been accepted. So we got some work to do. Lots of work to do. Now, this is, it's a big project. It's been a big project for a while. Pre-work cars are fun to do, but they take a lot more time than people think they should. If we just did pre-work cars, it'd be a different thing, but we can't do that here. We don't have enough of them. We've got some firewall stuff we got to finish up on it. Some trim we got to make, some tops for the firewall storage cubbies we have to be made. We've got some wiring work. As you can see, there's a bundle of wire right there. We got a ton of wiring work to do still. And you'll notice there's a giant thing missing. There's no engine in it. The engine's out at the machine shop still. We were waiting for all kinds of parts to put it together that had to come from the special unobtainium land. And, well, we have all the parts. They're all up at the machine shop. Now we just have to wait for the machine shop to get time to do its job and get bearings babbited for the crank mains and the rod journals, machine the crank, bore the cylinders for the new pistons. Sounds like small amount of stuff, but it's a lot of work. And machine shops, at least here in the Midwest, are extremely busy because they are few and far between these days. And competent machine shops are even more of a rarity. So that's going to be a big one for us here coming up. We have until September. This car has to be done. The Colorado Grand starts September 11th, which means this needs to be done before September. Technically, I'd like it to be done at least a month before September. So that puts us at about 4 months to do this. So you're going to see a lot of progress happening to this one, which means that the other project over here, this big one, this big project here, this is going to slow down a little bit. However, your sports car projects are not. These are actually going to pick up their pace a little bit. Christian and I are figuring out the schedule, and I think we've got it kind of figured out. It's not going to be solely, it's not going to be 100% me on the Lagonda project, and he's bouncing between some other cars. We're going to bounce between all of the cars, but It'll be, hey, Christian, you're really good at this thing on the Lagonda. Go do it. I'm better at this thing on the Triumph. I'll go do that. So it's going to be a lot of that kind of stuff. It's not a one-man show on each project. It's going to be a team effort across the board. So we'll get a ton of work done on these. We're going to get a ton of work done on that. And we're going to move that one along as much as we can. Before that happens, we got to get that white Defender done. So that's going to be one of the big plans, is getting that thing really cranked along, getting this one done and out of here. And I think that's not a crazy goal. So next week, I'll probably be back on this with Christian, helping him out, getting this knocked out as quickly as it possibly can, which will be fantastic. Until then, I hope you have a lovely week, and I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I will see you again next Friday for another shop update.